Hi, everybody. Welcome back. As we said just before the break, we're telling you the story of how Santa Monica Philharmonic basically has conductors that are so left-wing. Most of these people, most of the musicians support socialism, and they supported Che, and they supported Hugo Chavez, and they supported Stalin, and they supported all of these other murderers all the time. But when a conservative comes on, that is time to stand up and fight against the fascist takeover of America. Dennis Prager, as you know, is a radio show, and Dennis had him on the show. The guy who circulated that email, please urge your friends to not attend this concert, which helps normalize bigotry in our community. Dennis said to come on his show and explain himself, so he did. Dennis Prager asked him, would you play in North Korea? And Professor Andrew Apter said, well, yes, it's a cultural outreach kind of thing. Then Dennis said, would you share a podium with a North Korean conductor? And Apter said, I probably would, because this is an explicitly political mission in search of common understanding. So then Dennis made the perfectly logical, rational conclusion and said, so one could infer from that you deem that playing under me is more morally objectionable than playing under a North Korean conductor. In North Korea, the most tyrannical regime on earth, to which Apter said, no, I'd have to object to that. I think the situations are very different. Joining us now by telephone is Dennis Prager himself, a giant in this world of commentary, a great defender of freedom, and whose Prager University videos hit 250 million last year. They've done 300 million this year already, despite being suppressed by YouTube and Facebook. Dennis, it's so good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you very much. By the way, I want to just say on behalf of the Santa Monica Symphony Orchestra that they have been terrific. The board, which consists of both liberals and conservatives, as opposed to leftists and conservatives. I don't know if there are any leftists, but they were liberals, and they did not vote unanimously to invite me for that reason. They voted 5-3. But now they are unanimous. Since these objections came out, they said this is a line too far, and they have been utterly supportive of me, as has the conductor. And here's the key: 90% of the orchestra. All the press does is talk about the 1 out of 10 members who won't play for me. There isn't a word in the New York Times or the LA Times or any of the other papers that have covered this about the 90% that are playing. It's a very indicative thing about what we call fake news.
It certainly is. And I have to tell you, Dennis, we've watched a lot of horrible things happen over the last 8 years, 9 years in this country, but that actually gives me a little bit of hope. I think when you see behavior like that is in fact moral behaving with honor, it actually gives me a little hope. So we were talking about this whole thing. Let's just forget the orchestra then, because you make a very good point about how the majority of the orchestra is against this kind of tyranny. But let's just talk about people like Andrew Apter. We spent the first half of the show talking about moral virtue signaling and the idea that progressives have to, since their own moral code is so weak or non-existent. We were citing an article that said that sociologists have determined that if you have a lot of personal guilt, one of the ways that you can get rid of that guilt without having to actually atone for it is to place it on a third party. And that seems to me to be what's driving the modern left.
When I was in graduate school at Columbia, and I saw the students who took over professors' offices, ransacked their offices, in one case destroyed a man's whole life's work. Remember, there were no hard drives then. And I remember, and they all did it, of course, in the name of peace and the name of love and anti-war and all these noble sentiments. It was virtually every one of those who were talking about peace and love were personally ugly human beings. And that's when I awakened to the fact that leftism, not for all, but for very many, is a veneer that they put on to feel good about otherwise ignoble lives.
And watching the Antifa movement, Dennis, it's not just feel good about lies. The Antifa movement is painting conservatives as Nazis, and when you get right down to it, they're doing it because they're black-hearted thugs who like to beat people up, and they need a moral fig leaf to excuse this kind of behavior where they get to put on a mask and smash windows and set cars on fire.
That's exactly. No, I agree fully. I agree 100%. That is right. That's what they are. Yep. And they are what they claim to oppose. The most fascistic behavior comes from them.
What do you think about this other idea, which I think is also a powerful motivator for the kind of behaviors that got Professor Apter such attention? It also raises his status amongst his peers, doesn't it? Now, I'm very, very happy you made the distinction between liberals and far-left progressives, and I'm very happy that there was enough people of conscience left there. So when we talk about what Apter did, he got himself a fair amount of face gaining from this, didn't he? He went out there and fought against the great evil that is Dennis Prager and stopped the rise of Nazism in the bounds of Santa Monica.
Well, you know what's interesting? I tell you, this is truly one of these moments in my life that I throw up my hands and I just say, let God decide. I put up this hour of my dialogue with this professor, and I did so because I thought it was so obviously revealing as to the intellectual and moral paucity of his arguments. But he also put that hour up at the UCLA political science website. So to me, I just had to smile. I thought, my God, it's really fascinating. We both thought that we really revealed what the other side is like.
Yeah, you have to smile and laugh to keep from.
I mean, you pointed out with the North Korea thing, because it was an actual case. The New York Philharmonic went to North Korea in 2008. I didn't make it up as a theoretical. I said, would you have played, he's a violinist, would you have played with the New York under a North Korean conductor? Play at the Walt Disney Music Center with Dennis Prager? No.
Yeah, we don't have any problem being on stage with people that starve their entire country to death, but standing next to somebody who has a different opinion than us, that's simply not tolerable.
Yes.
Dennis, real quick, because we're very nearly out of time. We've talked with your marketing director about the suppression of Prager University videos and all of this. What are they so afraid of?
Well, in our case, I think, to be honest, we're very, very effective. We'll have 400 to 500 million views this year of our 5-minute videos. The single largest segment of our viewership is under 35 years of age. So I think there are people on the left who know, this PragerU stuff, it's a very effective, and let's suppress. The latest, this will crack you up, the latest one to be suppressed is Bret Stephens. That's. I mean,
My
the guy.
God.
He writes for the New York Times.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Dennis, your videos are just. They're just remarkable, and I hate to cut you off. We're just literally out of time because I could talk to you all day about this, and I certainly would like to.
It's a joy.
But
thank you.
You're a champion, and we're very proud of you, and thank you very much for being with us today.
God bless you. Thank
That's
you so
Dennis
much.
Prager, ladies and gentlemen. And he's a brave man because he stands up and fights for what he believes in. And so do we, and so does the NRA, and so does NRATV. And that's why we'll be back on Monday with a whole new host of villains to take a shot at. I'm Bill Whittle. This is the Hot Mic Show.